Hi guys, my name is Mia Scott, and today I will be talking about emerging adulthood, specifically ages 18 to 25, from a behavioral perspective on development. So I'm going to be also talking about incarceration and mental health as well. So my presentation will focus on emerging adulthood, which is considered a transitional stage between adolescence and adulthood. I will explain the developmental characteristics of this stage using learning and behavioral theory. I will also discuss biological, cognitive, social, and environmental influences, along with myths and misconceptions about young adults. Finally, I will connect those concepts to counseling and mental health treatment for incarcerated individuals. So, emergent adulthood is typically defined as ages 18 through mid to late 20s. During this stage, individuals experience identity exploration, instability, and increased independence. Many people in this stage feel in between, meaning they no longer see themselves as adolescents, but may not fully feel like adults yet. According to Lally and Valentine French, development continues across multiple domains during this stage, including emotional, social, and cognitive growth. This period is important because experiences during these years can significantly shape long term behavior and mental health outcomes. So, biologically, young adults are generally at their physical peak. However, brain development is still ongoing, especially in the prefrontal cortex, which controls decision making, reasoning, and impulse control. Casey and colleagues explain that this area continues developing into early adulthood, and because of this, young adults may still engage in risk taking behaviors such as substance use or impulse control. So, this shows that even though individuals may legally be adults, biological development is still continuing. Biology also interacts with the environment during this stage of development. So, for example, even though the brain is still developing, environmental influences such as peer pressure, family dynamics, education, trauma, or even incarceration can shape how individuals make decisions and regulate behavior. Behavioral theory suggests that biological development alone does not determine outcomes. Experiences and reinforcement from the environment also play a major role in shaping behavior and coping patterns. Cognitively, young adults develop stronger reasoning and problem solving abilities. They become more capable of abstract thinking, planning for the future, and understanding complex situations. However, impulse control and emotional regulation are still developing, especially during stressful situations. Cognitive development during emergent adulthood is also shaped by personal experiences and environmental influences. Higher education, employment, relationships, cultural expectations, and life stressors all contribute to how individuals think and respond to situations. Positive environments that encourage learning, emotional support, and independence can strengthen critical thinking and healthy decision making skills. In contrast, exposure to chronic stress, trauma, unstable environments, or incarceration can negatively influence cognitive development by reinforcing impulsive thinking, emotional dysregulation, or maladaptive coping skills. From a behavioral perspective, repeated experiences and environmental reinforcement help shape thought patterns and behavioral responses over time. So, to build upon the last slide, the behavioral perspective focuses on the idea that behavior is learned rather than fixed. And according to this theory, behavior develops through interactions with the environment and through repeated experiences. So, reinforcement or rewards strengthen behaviors over time, while punishments or consequences may reduce certain behaviors. Behavioral theorists focus more on observable behaviors instead of internal personality traits. This perspective is important because it supports the idea that behavior can change if environments and reinforcement systems change. So B.F. Skinner believes that behavior is shaped through consequences. So positive reinforcement increases behavior by providing a reward after a behavior occurs. So for example, if a young adult receives praise or incentives for attending counseling sessions consistently, they may be more likely to continue attending. Negative reinforcement occurs when discomfort is removed after a behavior. So, for example, someone may avoid conflict or punishment by following rules in a structured environment. Punishment, on the other hand, decreases behavior by introducing negative consequences. Skinner believes that repeated reinforcement over time creates long-term behavior patterns. So, from a behavioral perspective, this means that many behaviors seen in young adults, including maladaptive behaviors, may have developed because they were reinforced by their environment or experiences. So Bandura expanded behavioral theory by emphasizing observable learning, which means people can learn behaviors simply by watching others. He believed individuals are more likely to imitate behaviors they observe being rewarded or accepted. One of Bandura's most well-known studies is the Bobo doll experiment, where children watched adults behave aggressively towards a doll. The children later imitated that same aggressive behaviors, demonstrating that behavior can be learned through observation rather than direct reinforcement. This theory is important because during emerging adulthood, because peers, family members, social media, and environmental influences all provide behavioral models that individuals may imitate. Attention, memory, and motivation also influence whether observable learning occurs. Behavior is strongly shaped by environment, so positive environments can encourage healthy coping skills, emotional regulation, and adaptive behaviors by providing support, stability, and positive reinforcement. Negative environments, however, may reinforce aggression, substance use, or maladaptive coping behaviors through repeated exposure to stress, trauma, or unhealthy behavioral models. Social influences such as peers, family, community, and media exposure can also reinforce both positive and negative behavior patterns over time. Behavioral theory suggests that when environments and reinforcement systems change, behaviors can change as well. This idea is especially important when considering incarceration, rehabilitation, and long term behavioral outcomes. So, more on incarceration. Incarceration can be considered a high risk developmental environment. Individuals may learn survival based behaviors such as emotional suppression, aggression, or distrust. Incarceration also limits exposure to positive role models and healthy reinforcement systems. Bernard and colleagues found that incarceration negatively affects long term development and health outcomes. Semenza and colleagues also found that longer incarceration is associated with worse mental health outcomes in early adulthood. So, young adults impacted by incarceration experience higher rates of depression, anxiety, trauma, and emotional distress. Stressful environments reinforce negative coping behaviors, which can become long term learned responses. Research by Baser and colleagues found that young adults with arrest histories experience greater mental health disparities compared to their peers. From a behavioral perspective, repeated exposure to stress and trauma can reinforce maladaptive behavioral patterns over time. So, after release, many individuals experience challenges with reentry into society. These include difficulty finding employment, housing, and social support. Social stigma also affects opportunities and relationships. Behavioral theory suggests that changing behavior is difficult when individuals return to environments with limited support or reinforcement for positive change. Without stable support systems, individuals may continue previously learned behaviors. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some myths and misconceptions. So, one common misconception is that young adults are fully mature once they turn 18. However, research shows that brain development, especially in areas related to impulse control and decision making, continues into early adulthood. Another misconception is that behavior is fixed and cannot change. Behavioral theory argues that behavior is learned through reinforcement, observation, and environmental experiences. This means behavior can change when environments and support systems change. A major misconception related to incarceration is the belief that incarceration automatically corrects behavior. From a behavioral perspective, incarceration often reinforces survival based behaviors rather than healthy coping skills. Individuals may learn emotional suppression, aggression, distrust, or hypervigilance because those behaviors are reinforced within the prison environment. While incarceration may temporarily stop certain behaviors due to punishment or control, it does not necessarily teach healthier replacement behaviors. Without positive reinforcement, mental health support, skill development, and stable environments after release, individuals may continue the same maladaptive behavior patterns. This highlights why rehabilitation and counseling are important rather than relying on only punishment. So these concepts directly apply to mental health counseling. Counselors can use behavioral strategies to encourage positive behavior change through reinforcement and skill building. Teaching coping skills, emotional regulation, and healthy behavioral responses can help individuals develop more adaptive behaviors. Posada and Hall found that behavioral interventions can reduce mental health symptoms after incarceration. This supports the importance of structured support and positive reinforcement in counseling settings. So, in conclusion, emerging adulthood is a critical developmental stage where biological, cognitive, and social development continues. Behavioral theory explains that behavior is learned through reinforcement, observation, and environmental experiences. Incarceration can disrupt healthy development and reinforce maladaptive behaviors. However, counseling and supportive environments can help individuals relearn healthier behaviors and improve long term outcomes. And here are the references that I use for my presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.